How do you push your potential? You know, I got asked this question once and I absolutely fell in love with it because, and it's an amazing question because it presupposes that there's no limit to our potential, that we can continue to grow. You know, this is a completely different way of thinking than asking the question of, you know, how do I reach my potential? Which sort of implies that there's a limit to your potential. So whether it's in your business, in your career, in your personal life, you can continue to push your potential. And if you think about it, it sort of makes sense because every day we come across people who are doing amazing things, you know, things that we never thought people could do, things that we never thought human beings could do. You know, I'm sure in your life you've come across or you've done things that you've surprised yourself that you never thought you could do. But let's get real for a second. If we're honest with ourselves, then we know that we don't intentionally go out to push our potential on a regular basis, right? That we only do it when the opportunity presents itself or when we are put in a tricky situation and we do things that we surprise ourselves, right? And that's because pushing our potential, you know, challenging ourselves means we have to get out of our comfort zone. And we don't willfully do that because we love our little zones. We love our little familiar zones, our little boxes where we live, you know, our families, our friends, our lifestyle, our jobs, because these things make us feel safe. They make us feel secure. And not that there's anything wrong with that. You know, feeling safe and secure is one of our primary needs. But we also have another primary need, and that is our need to grow. And we can't grow as long as we're feeling comfortable, I should say. So for us to grow, for us to push our potential, we have to get out of our comfort zone. We have to venture out of our little boxes. And we have to do it often. You know, because the longer we stay in our zones of comfort, in our familiar zones, the harder it gets for us to venture out. You know, now we know more about the human brain than we ever did, right? The field of neuroscience has grown leaps and bounds over the last few decades. And we now know that the brain is defined more by its activity and less by its mass. You know, the synapses, the connections that are being made in our brains happen when we demand more of our brain, when we're challenging ourselves, when we're learning new things, when we're pushing ourselves. You know, the less we demand of our brain, you know, the more we stay in our comfort zones, the less we demand of our brain, and the quicker our brain loses its vitality. So I hope I've sold you now on why you need to continue to push your potential. So let's get to how it is that you can push your potential. So the first thing you want to do is you want to start taking chances. Start taking risks. And it doesn't have to be big. You know, you can start small. You know, pick up a book that you would not read. You know, watch a movie that you typically would not watch. Or go visit a restaurant that you typically would not eat at. Or at work, you know, take on a project that you typically would not do, or, you know, maybe do a presentation. Just whatever it is, just start taking risks. Start small. If you're not comfortable, start small and just continue to do it. But it's important that you continue to do it, right? It's important that you do this with a certain level of frequency, because the more often you do it, the easier it becomes for you to take chances. The easier it becomes for you to expand your horizon, to venture out of your comfort zone. So that's the first thing you can do, is take risks. The second thing you need to do is you need to watch and challenge your limiting beliefs. So let's start at the beginning. What is a limiting belief? A limiting belief is a belief about yourself of what you can or cannot do, which is false. You know, we all have limiting beliefs. You have them, I have them. They creep in there somehow, and you know that they exist whenever you hear yourself say something like, oh, you know, I could never do that, or that's impossible. That's certainly not for me. You know, whenever you hear yourself say that, you've got to investigate. You've got to discover, okay, why is it that you believe that to be true? Right? And then challenge that belief. You know, we get limiting beliefs into our head from various areas, you know, from our past failures, you know, from watching other people fail. Like, you know, if you see someone do something and they fail, and you think to yourself, you know, well, that's you know, nobody should do that because look at that person failed, so everybody is going to fail, you know. Or even the absence of evidence, you know, the fact that nobody's ever done it before, done something before, that we believe that it can't be done. You know, before Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile in 1954, people believed that it was impossible for a human being to run a mile in under 4 minutes. But when Roger Bannister broke it in 1954, sooner after that, a number of people started to break the 4-minute mile, because what Roger Bannister did is he provided the evidence that it is indeed possible for a human being to run a mile in under 4 minutes. So again, the second thing you need to do is you need to watch and you need to challenge your limiting beliefs. And the third thing you can do to push your potential, to continue to push your potential, is to be around people who push their potential. You know, there's a thing about being in groups, because sooner or later you start to adopt their beliefs, you start to adopt their thinking and their behavior, you start to adopt their ethos, right? Their mindset. And it's important that if you're going to be pushing your potential, why not surround yourself with people who are already doing that in their lives? You know, be around people who are pushing their potential, because it will get you to adopt that mindset. It'll get you to get comfortable to push your potential. And we have to understand that, you know, in our life, you know, with our families, our spouses, our friends, you know, they may not be people who are ready for that, they may not be people who are continually pushing their potential. And it's important for us to know that, you know, they are people who are in our lives. You know, we love them, they love us, you know, they don't want to see us hurt, we don't want to see them hurt, you know. So it's important that we don't judge them, but we understand that their mindset may not be this. So if you are wanting to push your potential, if you need to push your potential, you need to go and seek out people who are like-minded and be around them. So third thing, that's the third piece of advice, is pick and choose your peer group. Pick and choose people to surround you, to surround yourself with, who are already pushing their potential, who are already doing things to challenge themselves. So there you have it. 3 things that you can do to continue to push your potential, to continue to challenge yourself, to get out of your comfort zone. You know, take more risks. Make it a habit of taking risks. Small risks, big risks. As long as you're comfortable taking those types of risks, take the risks. You know, watch your limiting beliefs. Watch and challenging your limiting beliefs. These are the beliefs that essentially keep you locked into your comfort zone. And lastly, surround yourself with people who are already pushing their potential. Hey, Amir Radali here. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, there's a few things you can do to make sure that we continue our relationship. First, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel to make sure that you're notified of when I release my next video. Second, you can join me on Facebook, where I share daily insights and inspiration to help you recharge and energize for your workday. And third, you can sign up for some free training on my website, where I offer some free training on how to fast track your career. So there you go. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, join me on Facebook, sign up for some free training. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in my next video.